Starting off this countdown, we have the woman named Joan. Joan refers to a mysterious unidentified woman who claimed to be a time traveler. She came forward in the late 90s saying that she was from the future and needed help getting back home. She went on live TV but had her voice distorted and her face blurred. Joan claims that she was abandoned while on her mission. She has to keep her identity a secret, otherwise she claims she will be killed. Now, what's weird about this is that after her interview aired, her tapes were stolen from the broadcast company. Once the tapes were stolen, Joan was never heard from again. It was believed that her identity was leaked because the unedited interview revealed who she was. She may have been killed or went into hiding after this. In our 9th spot, we have the outbreak. So this next legend is wild. Legend goes that our current outbreak situation is due to time travelers. That's right, you heard me. They believe that time travelers from the future who were immune to this disease came to our current time period and brought the deadly virus with them. Oh, told you this legend was wild. In our 8th spot, we have the vacationers. In 1901, 2 English women took a vacation to France. They were doing typical tourist things and visited the Palace of Versailles. While there, they visited the Petit Trianon. Hopefully I said that right. Which was a little place that was gifted to Marie Antoinette as a private spot for her to hang out. So these women were having a fun day, they were exploring and embracing the French culture and also time traveling. Yeah. These women claimed that while at the spot, they time traveled. I don't think that was included in their itinerary. So while at the Petit Trianon, they claimed that they saw people wearing outdated clothing and they heard mysterious voices. Not only that, but they saw buildings and other structures that were no longer present and hadn't existed since the late 1700s. Lastly, they claimed that they saw Marie Antoinette herself drawing in her sketchbook. That's definitely one trip that they'll never forget. Moving on to number 7, we have the chrononauts. In 2011, 2 men by the name of Andrew Basiego and William Sillings stepped forward claiming that they were former time travelers. They claimed that they worked for a project called Project Pegasus. Apparently through this program, they were picked to go to Mars and did so by teleportation. Then they also claimed that they went back in time and met Barack Obama, who was 19 at the time. Apparently Barack was also chosen to go to Mars. However, Obama has denied any of these claims, so guess he's not a time traveler. Making our way down the list at number 6, we have the shock. So this next urban legend is meant as a warning for anyone who is interested in time travel. The legend states that time travel is deadly. It can cause memory loss, cognitive decline, and completely rearrange your genetic makeup. If you constantly jump from the past to the future to the present, then your body will start to become overwhelmed. Every time you time travel, they believe that the cells in your body are being manipulated and rearranged. As a result, you may age at an incredible rate. The legend also states that if time travel is done improperly, then it can cause you to become disfigured. You may be teleported back in time, but you might lose a limb or your body parts might get fused together. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with John Titor. This is another extremely famous urban legend. So John Titor is a supposed time traveler from the year 2036 on a military mission. He first made his appearance on the internet in the 2000s on online forums. He would post about predictions or stories from the future. The reason for him traveling back in time is so that he can get an IBM 5100, which apparently had a secret function that could translate anything to any language. He also claimed that the company was keeping it hidden for the fear of their competition finding out about it. On the forums, John also posted grainy photos of the time machine and of the military logo from the future. In 2001, Titor disappeared from online and was never heard from again. Then in 2004, the company IBM came forward and said that Titor was right and that their computer did have that secret function that he mentioned. So people believe that he is a real time traveler. In our 4th spot, we have the aliens. This next legend states that aliens are the key to time traveling. Back in the 1970s, a man came forward claiming that he was abducted by time-traveling aliens. These aliens took him back in time where he was able to visit dinosaurs. They also apparently took him to Mars and a few thousand years into the future. But he's not the only person to claim that aliens can time travel. Other people have come forward believing that extraterrestrials are so intelligent that they already figured out how to harness the power of time travel and use it to their advantage. Moving on to number 3, we have the Coronavisor. So the Coronavisor is the name of a device that can apparently record footage from back in time. The device was invented in the 1950s by a team of Italian scientists. Apparently this machine can tune into times and places in the past and then get images or videos from that time period. In fact, they have released photos of the crucifixion of Jesus, which they claim the machine took. Now it's said that the device and footage is sealed away within the vaults of the Vatican. They fear that it will fall into the wrong hands who will use it for evil. In our second spot, we have the Philadelphia experiment. This legend takes us back to the early 1940s. Apparently during this time, the government was conducting experiments on the USS Eldridge. They were attempting to make the ship invisible to the enemy radar. Witnesses claimed that they saw the ship surrounded by a greenish-blue glow before it suddenly disappeared. The ship was then seen at a shipyard in Virginia before disappearing again and then reappearing back in Philadelphia. So the ship somehow teleported. On top of that, some even say that the vessel went back 10 seconds in time. Apparently when it reappeared, the crew on board fell ill. Some even went insane, whereas others were fused with the ship's metal. And in our number 1 spot, we have the fence legend. This has to be the most popular time travel urban legend out there. So legend goes that in the midsummer of the 1950s, a 30-year-old man by the name of Rudolph Fentz appeared on the streets of New York City. He was dressed in fashion from the late 19th century and seemed very disoriented. Then out of nowhere, this man was hit and killed by a New York taxi. Upon investigating, his pockets contained a copper token for beer, a bill for the care of a horse, and a letter from 1876, among other unusual items. None of the objects showed signs of aging. Turns out that this man was a person who disappeared in 1876 at the age of 29. Some believe that this legend is actually true and that Rudolph Fentz was a real time traveler. Air Marshal. Back in 1935, Air Marshal Sir Victor Goddard just so happened to time travel by mistake. So legend starts with Victor flying over the decommissioned Royal Air Force Station in Scotland. He described the base as being completely abandoned, but on his return trip home while flying over the same spot, he encountered a huge storm. When it cleared, he saw that the base was completely in use again. The once abandoned airfield was filled with planes and mechanics moving about. In fact, he claimed that some of the planes he didn't even recognize. But within seconds, the storm reappeared and he had to fight to keep control. He did manage to make it home safely, but wondered what the heck he saw. So it's believed that he got a peek into the future. In our 9th spot, we have Andrew Carlson. In 2002, Andrew Carlson, an investor, managed to turn his $800 worth of investments into $350 million, all by trading in high-risk stocks. But this seemed all too suspicious, and he was arrested for insider trading. During his interrogation, he told investigators that he was a time traveler from the year 2256. He offered to exchange information on the location of and the cure for HIV/AIDS in return for a lesser punishment, and if they allowed him to go back to his time machine. But he refused to tell them the location of this machine. Of course, without proof, investigators didn't fall for this nonsense. But what makes this case creepy is that a mystery person posted his bail, and then he left and was never seen again. In fact, records show that he never existed. So maybe he was telling the truth. Who knows? Coming in at number 8, we have the Iranian time machine. In April of 2013, an Iranian news agency posted a story claiming that a 27-year-old Iranian scientist had invented a time machine. They claimed that this machine allowed people to see into the future. Apparently, this device could fit into the size of a computer case and could predict details of the next 5 to 8 years of the life of its users. But legend goes that a couple days later, the story was removed. In its place was a story from a government official denying the existence of such device. Or so that's what they want you to think. Some believe that that was the government's attempt to cover up the existence of this device. So it could just be that the machine is really out there somewhere. But would you honestly want to know what the future holds for you? I wouldn't. Just let it be a surprise. In our 7th spot, we have Alien Barbie. There are some people out there that undergo extreme surgeries and body modifications, like Lizard Man and Leopard Man. But today, we will be talking about the human Barbie doll. Valeria Lukyanova is known for looking like a real-life Barbie. But in a 20-minute documentary on YouTube, she revealed that she's not human, and in fact, is a time-traveling alien. Yup, so legend goes that she came to Earth to save the world. What's she saving us from, you ask? Negative energy. Yep. And she has a goal to transform humans into human demigods. I mean, that's kind of cool. I want to be a demigod. But like, I don't know what to think about this one. Making our way down the list of number 6, we have Liverpool. According to this legend, over the years, Liverpool has had a lot of strange things happen on Bold Street. According to one woman, she was out shopping at a store and tried to buy a gift for her sister, but the workers refused her credit card. When she went home to complain to her mom, the mom said that that store hadn't been around for years. Later, when she returned to the same store, in its place she found a bank. But that's not all. Legend goes that a police officer was out and about when suddenly he traveled back in time to the 1960s. Suddenly he was surrounded by a bunch of stores he had never seen or heard of before, and the newspaper he found had the year 1960 printed on it. So somehow they both traveled back in time. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Donald Trump. Now, I did mention this in one of my past videos, but it deserves to be on this list. It has to be one of the creepiest time travel urban legends out there. So legend goes that Donald Trump and his son Barron Trump are both time travelers from the future. Legend goes that Trump traveled back in time to become the ruler of America. These theories arise after someone discovered 2 books on the Office of Congress Library website. The books are called Barron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey and 1900, or The Last President. Both were written in the 1890s by Ingersoll Lockwood. The book Barron Trump is about a young boy who finds a secret portal and time travels. Both books have eerie connections to Donald Trump and his family. First off, the book is called Barron Trump, and Barron Trump is the name of Donald Trump's son. Coincidence? I think not. But it doesn't stop there. At one point in the book, he was guided by a man named Don, aka Donald as in Donald Trump. And then in the book The Last President, it's about an unlikely presidential candidate that won the election. Sound familiar? Even freakier, the book talks about the 5th Avenue Hotel. The address of the hotel in the book is the exact address where Trump's tower currently stands. It gets creepier. In the book, there is a character named Laugh Pence, who is the Secretary of Agriculture. Come on, like, hello, the Vice President is Mike Pence. There's just too many similarities between the books and Donald Trump's life. So people believe that this book was actually written about Trump and his family. It's too creepy. In our 4th spot, we have the Bermuda Triangle. So the Bermuda Triangle is kind of a giant mystery on its own. In fact, some believe that people don't necessarily go missing in the triangle, but instead are somehow transported in time. So legend goes that one day 3 ships were traveling through the Bermuda Triangle when they entered a mysterious fog. When they emerged through to the other end of the fog, there were only 2 ships. The other ship was way ahead of them. The crew aboard that ship claimed that the fog transported them back in time several years. There they saw a bunch of different boats and passengers also sailing. Then they approached the same fog and got transported back to the current day. Spooky. In our third spot, we have Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a painter, sculptor, inventor, engineer, architect, and time traveler. So legend goes that Leonardo da Vinci is a time traveler, hence why he is often considered way ahead of his time. So legend goes that Da Vinci went back in time to steal others' accomplishments and to make a name for himself. Another version of this legend is that he went back in time to help advance the world. Like, this dude was a genius. He knew more things than anyone else did in that time period. For example, he drew pictures of a helicopter in 1493. That's around 450 years before an actual helicopter was created. But not only that, he had the idea for an armored fighting vehicle, aka tanks. And he also invented the idea of a submarine. He talked about ships that could travel underwater, and he even sketched designs of them. So how did he come up with all these modern day inventions and more? Because he's a time traveler. Coming in at number 2, we have LC. Back in 1969, a man named LC and his associate Bob, clearly these are both fake names to protect their identity, they were traveling along a highway in Abbeville, Louisiana when they approached a very old looking car driving on the road. The car was clearly an antique and was driving fairly slow. What was strange was that the car had an orange license plate with the year 1940 printed on it, which was weird because that type of car can't be driven on the road unless it's for like a parade or car show. So they changed lanes and drove beside the car, and inside they saw a woman dressed in a vintage dress with a hat and fur coat. There was also a child in the car, also dressed in clothes from the 40s. When the woman spotted their car, she started to panic and pulled off to the side of the road. The two did the same and pulled over in front of her, but when they looked back, the car was gone. So legend goes that somehow they traveled to the past, or that driver traveled to the future. And in our number 1 spot, we have the man from Torrid. Legend goes that in July of 1954, a well-dressed man arrived at the Haneda airport in Tokyo, Japan. Nothing was odd about this man until he was questioned by the customs officer. The man then claimed that he was from Torrid, and it was his 3rd time visiting Japan from his country. However, there is no country named Torrid. His documents, like his passport and IDs, were all authentic, but it said that he was from this mysterious place called Torrid. They eventually took him into custody for further interrogation, thinking that he was a criminal. He was placed in a hotel room that had only one entry and exit point. His door was monitored by 2 guards, but somehow this man mysteriously vanished. The thing was, he was put up in a room high up in the hotel with no balcony. So there's no way he could have escaped. So some people think that Torrid is a real country but in a different universe, or that it's a country in the future and he's a time traveler that mistakenly landed at the airport.
Coming in at number 10 now, we have Håkan Nordqvist. In 2006, this Swedish man claimed he had been to the year 2046. How did he get there? Through his kitchen sink. He was trying to fix a problem under his sink, but when he went into the cabinet, he noticed that it just didn't end. It kept on going and going and going. Eventually he reached the end of the tunnel, and there he was in the year 2042, and he met his older self. This might be easy to dismiss, but for one thing, he brought his phone with him and he filmed it. What you're seeing now is the footage of him meeting his older self in the year 2042. They even show each other their identical tattoos. I don't know about this one, maybe we'll have to wait until 2042 to see if he really was telling the truth. Alright, at number 9 now, we have the Chaplin Time Traveler. In 2010, a clip was uploaded to YouTube from the Extras DVD of Charlie Chaplin's film The Circus. It shows people attending the premiere of the movie, and then there is this woman. Now people claim she is talking into a phone. Problem is, this was 1928, about 45 years before the first cell phone was ever even conceived of. Believers say that there would be no reason to hold something to your face in 1928 and talk into it, so What was she doing? Was it a cell phone? Is she a time traveler? Or is there some simple explanation for it? At number 8 now, we have the Hamburg bombing. In 1932, 2 German news reporters visited the Hamburg shipyards to work on a story. J. Bernard Hutton and Joachim Brandt finished their interviews, and as they left, they heard aircraft above them. The sky was filled with warplanes. They heard the city's anti-aircraft guns firing as bombs exploded around them. The shipyard was being bombed. Huge fires started. Warehouses collapsed. The 2 men ran to see if they could go and help someone, but were told by a security guard to just leave. As they drove away, the sky suddenly started to clear. The streets were busy again with people. The buildings were totally intact. They looked back and everything was fine. They told their editors this, who dismissed it completely, so the men just kind of forgot about it. 11 years later, in 1943, at the height of World War II, the Hamburg shipyards were bombed by Britain. Bernard Hutton saw the newspaper pictures and felt a shiver along his spine. The scenes of devastation were exactly what he had seen in person 11 years before. At number 7 now, we have the time-traveling hipster. This is a picture from 1941 of the reopening of a bridge in British Columbia, Canada. People's eyes were immediately drawn to this man. His clothes don't seem to fit in. He looks more like a modern-day hipster than someone from 1941. People said his camera was just too compact for that era. For them, this was a sure sign of a time traveler wearing and using things that just didn't exist back then. The photo has been deemed as authentic. It's not a fake. Critics of this theory though say that the clothes and the camera were available at that time, though not widely common. Alright, at number 6 now, we have Andrew Carlson. In 2003, this man was arrested for playing the stock market too well. Over a 2-week period, he went from having $800 to $350 million. He was arrested on the allegation that he had insider information. Under questioning, he confessed he was actually from the year 2256. That's how he knew which stocks were going to perform best. He promised to tell them the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden or the cure to AIDS if they let him go. He supposedly predicted the exact date of the Iraq war starting as proof. The police essentially dismissed him as crazy and found no evidence that he had committed fraud, so they let him go. As the world media swarmed to interview him, he was gone and has never been heard of since. Coming out number 5 now, we have Sir Victor Goddard. He was a famous British air marshal, most famous for his squad picture that contained the supposed ghost of a former member. He also claimed to have travelled in time. In 1935, he was ordered to fly from Scotland to England when he passed over the abandoned Drem airfield. At that time, it was out of use. Plants had grown everywhere. There were even cows grazing on the runway. Suddenly, he ran into a strange storm. The clouds were yellow and Goddard became disorientated. He was just lost in the clouds and falling. Then the yellow clouds broke and he could see the airfield again. The storm vanished. Everything was clear. The airfield had changed. There were now mechanics there working on brand new planes. 3 of them he recognized, but the 4th was a monoplane that didn't even exist in 1935. The planes were all yellow and the mechanics were wearing blue overalls. He had never seen anything like it. Eventually though, after many years, the planes and the new uniforms did come to pass. Drem Airfield even came back into use, just like Goddard said. Was this all a lucky guess or a genuine time slip? At number 4 now, we have John Titor. In 2000, a person calling himself John Titor announced on an online forum that he was an American soldier from the year 2036. Now he said the government sent him back to 1976 to get an IBM computer which they needed to debug computers in the future. He stopped off in 2000 for personal reasons and decided to let people in on the secrets of the future. He got certain things right: North Korea developing missiles, IBM computers having secret functions. He also left detailed schematics and explanations of his actual time machine. But he did get some things wrong. He said there would be another American Civil War in 2008 and World War III would have happened by 2015. But he also said that timelines could be changed. Does that explain it? Either way, the mysterious John Titor disappeared altogether from the internet in 2003. Okay, at number 3 now, we have the Mike Tyson fight. In 1995, Mike Tyson boxed Peter McNeely in Nevada. In 2015, YouTube started buzzing with people saying that in the background of one of the clips of this fight, there was was a time traveler. They said this woman here was carrying what is clearly a smartphone and taking pictures, years before that was even possible. They said that no phone like that existed in 1995 and that it even flashed red like a smartphone. Other people countered by showing examples of cameras that did exist back then that kind of look similar. What do you guys think though? Is it too close to call, or is it proof of a time traveling boxing fan going back to watch their favorite match? Okay, at number 2 now we have the astronaut. The Catedral Nueva in Spain started being built in 1513. It's a grand old cathedral with a lot of nice stonework you'd expect from the Middle Ages, except for one bit of it. There, along one of the entrances, is a carving of an astronaut. What is an astronaut doing on a 16th century church? Well, this is where the explanations divide. The church itself and many other people there say that the astronaut was added as part of a 1992 restoration project. That makes sense, but others say that doesn't add up. They say that the astronaut was carved a lot earlier than that, and that the restoration work was actually to just repair the damaged astronaut. They say it was proof of a time traveling astronaut who left a little mark on the era he visited. And finally now, at number 1 we have Gertrude Jones. This is her in 1938 leaving the factory where she worked. Some people on YouTube were freaking out saying that she was talking into a phone decades before that was even possible. They said even the way she holds it is reminiscent of someone holding a smartphone with your thumb over the screen. However, in 2013 a woman came forward in the comment section of the video to say that she was the great granddaughter of Gertrude, who was actually part of a science experiment to test an early wireless phone. Some people say that's it, case closed, no more explanation is needed, but others say there are no records of these experiments that happened about 40 years before the first cell phone prototypes were even being made. Was Gertrude a time traveler? Was she also the person who commented on the YouTube video in an attempt to cover her tracks? What do you guys think of this one?